"She's with child," they whispered, until a cowboy stood up and said, "If she is, it's mine." Small clusters of domed habitats reflected the dying light, their surfaces scarred by decades of wind storms and alien dust. It was a harsh world, unforgiving and unkind, yet humans had carved a fragile existence here, their persistence stubborn as the rocks beneath them. Ilara walked along the perimeter, her boots crunching over the dusty soil. Her dark hair was pulled back, streaked with red dust from the day's work, and her hands were calloused from hours of adjusting terraforming equipment. She paused for a moment, squinting at the horizon. Beyond the hills, the alien wilderness stretched endlessly, filled with dangers the colonists had learned to respect and sometimes fear. She felt the whispers before she even heard them. First faint murmurs near the supply dome, then sharper tones drifting from the communal hub. "She's with child," they said. "Who is the father?" Some voices were quiet, cautious. Others carried venom as if they took pleasure in suspicion. Ilara clenched her jaw and continued walking. She knew the rules of frontier life: work hard, contribute, survive. Personal matters were supposed to be secondary, but rumor had a way of spreading faster than any human voice, and she could feel the eyes of the colony upon her. The whispering had started weeks ago. A missed shift, a lingering look, a subtle gesture, and suddenly every conversation seemed to circle back to her. The colony had always been tight-knit, but in a place where survival depended on cooperation, a hint of scandal could destroy more than reputations. It could destroy lives. As she approached the central habitat, she noticed Jace leaning against the wall of the main dome. The cowboy's broad-brimmed hat shadowed his sharp eyes, and his arms were crossed over a rugged chest that had seen years of hard labor. He was quiet by nature, preferring action over words, yet his presence seemed to calm the restless murmurs around him. "Morning," he said, his voice low but steady. "Morning," she replied, not looking at him. He studied her for a moment, his gaze softening. "Don't listen to them," he said. "They don't know what they're talking about." Ilara shook her head. "It's not that simple. People are scared, Jace. They look for something to blame, something familiar." He nodded. "And you think they picked you?" "I didn't think they picked anyone," she admitted. "Until now." The air was tense, charged with unspoken questions and quiet judgment. Ilara had spent years proving herself on this planet, adapting its harsh climate, experimenting with soil, and building the systems that kept the colony alive. Yet all that experience counted for little against the weight of gossip. She stepped into the main dome, where a few colonists were gathered around the hydroponic gardens. Some avoided her gaze. Others stared openly, their curiosity barely masked. The whispers followed her like shadows, but she ignored them, focusing instead on her work. Ilara moved to the nutrient tanks, checking the levels and adjusting the pumps. The faint hum of machinery was the only sound for a while, until a voice cut through the quiet. "You're still working?" one of the settlers asked, a young woman with bright eyes and a hesitant smile. "Yes," Ilara replied, keeping her tone even. "This place won't maintain itself." The girl hesitated, then nodded. People are talking. About you." Ilara didn't respond. She couldn't waste energy defending herself to those who were too afraid to face the truth. Fear made people cruel, and cruelty was contagious. Outside, the twin suns dipped lower, and the temperature dropped sharply. Nereus 7 was merciless at night, and the settlers relied on heat regulators and reinforced domes to survive. Ilara finished her rounds, sealing the last of the nutrient tanks, and stepped back into the cold air. Jace was waiting. He had saddled a rugged, dust-streaked rover, its tires leaving deep tracks in the red soil. He glanced at her, and she could see a flicker of concern in his eyes. "You should rest," he said. "Even if they don't think it, you need it." Ilara shook her head again. "I can't, not while the perimeter isn't secure." He sighed but didn't argue. Instead, he climbed into the rover and started the engine, a low rumble that echoed across the plains. Ilara joined him, sitting beside him in silence as the vehicle rolled toward the outer fences. The colony's perimeter was marked by tall energy barriers, humming faintly in the twilight. Beyond them, the alien wilderness waited, filled with creatures that had evolved to survive harsh conditions and to hunt relentlessly. Humans were not at the top of the food chain here. They survived through ingenuity, technology, and sheer stubbornness. As they reached the first checkpoint, Jace pointed to a series of strange footprints leading away from the fence. They were too large for a human and too precise to be random. "Looks like we've got visitors," he said, his voice steady but alert. Alara knelt to inspect the tracks. "Alien reconnaissance," she whispered. "They're testing us." Jace grunted. "They think we're weak. They think we'll crumble." Alara looked up at him, her eyes steady. "Then they don't know humans." Jace nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "No, they don't." The rover rolled back toward the colony, the suns dipping below the horizon, leaving a sky painted with streaks of red and violet. Behind them, shadows stretched across the plains, hiding the unknown. Within the colony, fear and gossip continued to spread, but in the quiet strength of Alara and the calm determination of Jace, there was a spark, a reminder that humans were unpredictable, resilient, and not easily broken. Inside the main dome, the settlers gathered for their evening meal. Conversations hummed quietly, but the whispers about Alara lingered, circling like a predator. Some looked to Jace, hoping for a sign, a word to calm the tension. He gave none, simply sitting quietly, his presence a silent shield. Finally, one of the older colonists spoke up. "We've faced worse than gossip," he said, his voice gruff but carrying authority. "We've survived storms, sickness, and wild beasts. We'll survive this too." The settlers nodded, though the whispers did not die completely. Alara served herself quietly, her thoughts drifting to the future, to the unknown threats lurking outside the fences, and to the strange bond forming between her and Jace. That night, as the colony slept beneath the twin moons, Alara stood at the edge of her habitat, looking at the stars. She felt a strange mixture of fear and resolve. She was human, and humans survived where others failed. And if the colony doubted her, it did not matter. She had work to do, threats to face, and a life to protect, not just her own, but the new life growing within her. Far beyond the colony, in the shadows of the alien wilderness, unseen eyes watched. The humans of Nereus 7 were interesting to them, clever, tenacious, and unpredictable, and that, the aliens thought, could be dangerous. Alara returned inside, feeling a small, quiet sense of victory. The whispers might continue, but she was ready. Tomorrow would bring work, challenges, and perhaps confrontation. But she was human, and humans did not cower. Humans adapted, humans fought, and humans endured. As she prepared for sleep, she felt a soft hand on her shoulder. Jace had followed her. "Rest," he said simply. "We have a long day ahead." She nodded, grateful for his quiet strength. For the first time in days, she felt a flicker of hope. Whatever the colony thought, whatever the whispers said, they would survive, together. And in that moment, she realized something profound. Humans were not defined by fear, nor by rumor. Humans were defined by courage, by loyalty, and by the refusal to yield, even when the odds seemed impossible. The twin moons of Nereus 7 cast a pale glow over the colony, making the red plains appear silver in the soft light. Inside the main dome, the settlers moved quietly, preparing for another long night. The earlier whispers about Alara still lingered, though they were drowned out by a new concern. Strange tracks had been found near the perimeter earlier that evening, and the colonists were tense. Alara stood near the entrance to the hydroponic garden, examining the footprints again. They were unlike anything she had seen before, too large for a human, too precise for a native animal. Her brow furrowed as she crouched to inspect them closer. "They're not natural," she murmured. Her voice was calm, but her mind raced. Something came through here, something intelligent. Jace joined her silently, his eyes scanning the horizon. Reconnaissance, he said. They're testing us. Alara nodded. They want to see how strong we are. If they think we're weak, she let the thought trail off. Humans were rarely weak, even when others assumed so. Jace's hand rested briefly on her shoulder. Then we show them humans don't give up, he said, voice steady. We fight. We survive. We endure. Alara gave a faint smile. Exactly. They'll learn soon enough. The colony council had gathered in the central dome. Holographic displays showed the layout of the perimeter and a map of the surrounding terrain. The settlers debated quietly, voices rising and falling as fear mixed with strategy. Colonel Reichard, the de facto leader of the colony, stood at the center. His face was stern, lined with years of experience. "We don't know what we're facing," he said. "But we do know we have to prepare. Alara, can your terraforming systems help us?" She nodded, stepping forward. "Yes. I can modify the terrain outside the colony to create barriers and traps. It won't stop a full-scale attack, but it will slow them down. Give us an advantage." Some of the settlers whispered among themselves. "She's with child," one muttered under his breath, doubt lacing his tone. "Can she really handle this?" Jace's hand shot out, resting on the man's shoulder. "She can," he said sharply. "And if anyone thinks otherwise, they can look at what she's already done. She's kept this colony alive more than you've kept your own fires burning." The murmurs died down. Humans had a strange way of rallying behind strength when they saw it, even if they doubted at first. Alara began outlining her plan. She explained how she would redirect the moisture from the artificial rain systems to create mud traps near the perimeter, making it harder for large alien scouts to move quickly. She would also adjust the terrain near the energy barriers, forming small ridges and pits that could conceal defensive positions. Colonists nodded as she spoke, and for the first time that evening there was a sense of hope. Fear was still there, but so was resolve. Humans were remarkable that way. They could take the smallest chance and turn it into survival. As Alara worked with a team of engineers, Jace checked the perimeter sensors. The rover's headlights cut through the twilight, illuminating the strange footprints she had noticed earlier. There were more than they had first realized, and some led deeper into the wilderness. "Too many for scouts alone," Jace said quietly. "They're sending a group." "Could be the start of something bigger." Alara's eyes narrowed. "Then we need to act fast. Every hour we delay, they gain the advantage." The settlers moved quickly, following her instructions. Terrains were reshaped, traps were set, and hidden defensive positions were reinforced. Even the youngest and oldest members of the colony contributed, showing that humans could work together in ways that no other species expected. Night fell fully and the twin moons rose high, illuminating the alien landscape in a ghostly light. From the darkness beyond the colony, Alara could sense movement. The alien creatures were cautious, testing the barriers and the humans' response. But humans had always been clever, unpredictable, and tenacious. That unpredictability was their greatest weapon. Jace walked beside Alara along the edge of the outer fence, scanning the darkness with a long-range scope. "They're watching," he said, "measuring how we react." Alara nodded. "Let them. They'll learn quickly that humans don't panic. We adapt. We fight back. That's why we survive on worlds like this." Suddenly, a shadow darted across the far side of the plain. It moved with unnatural speed, silent and deliberate. The settlers froze, watching as it paused briefly near one of the newly set traps. Then, just as quickly, it vanished into the darkness. "Intelligent," Alara said softly. "They're testing the traps, seeing if we're clever enough to use the terrain against them." Jace's jaw tightened. "They're going to find out." Inside the central dome, the settlers prepared for a possible attack. Weapons were checked, energy barriers powered up, and emergency shelters readied. The tension was palpable, but so was determination. Humans were never stronger than when they faced overwhelming odds. Colonel Reichard gathered the senior team. "Listen," he said. We don't know their numbers and we don't know their strategy, but we do know one thing: they've never faced humans like this. They've underestimated our ingenuity before and they'll underestimate it again. Alara stood beside him, her presence commanding attention. "We've survived on this planet for decades," she said. "We've faced storms, sickness, and wild creatures. Nothing has broken us yet. And nothing will." Jace placed a hand on her shoulder again, silently lending support. His eyes scanned the crowd and slowly the settlers straightened, feeling the courage that humans carried in their hearts. Hours passed. The colony remained alert, scanning for any sign of movement beyond the perimeter. Then, just before dawn, the first faint signals appeared on the sensors. Small, fast-moving shadows moving across the plains. The aliens had begun their reconnaissance in earnest. Alara and Jace rode the rover toward the outer perimeter, checking the traps and barriers. The alien scouts moved with precision, avoiding some traps and triggering others. But each time, the humans adapted, learning from the aliens' tactics and improving their defenses. "They're smart," Alara said, "but they're not human smart." Jace grinned slightly. "That's our advantage. We think in ways they don't expect." The settlers watched from the safety of the domes as the small battle unfolded outside. Mud pits trapped alien scouts, energy barriers redirected their movements, and the humans' clever use of terrain forced the aliens to retreat multiple times. Even those who had doubted Alara began to whisper in admiration. "She's really something," one of the young engineers said quietly. Jace nodded. "Humans are like that. Don't underestimate them, ever." As dawn broke over the red plains, the alien scouts retreated into the wilderness. They had gathered information, tested the humans, and underestimated their adaptability. The settlers cheered quietly, relief and pride mixing in their voices. Alara wiped the dust from her hands and looked at Jace. "We did it," she said, "but this is just the beginning." "They'll be back and stronger," Jace nodded. "Then we'll be ready. Humans always are." The day began with more work, repairs, upgrades, and preparation for whatever the aliens might try next. Yet there was a sense of unity, a shared confidence that humans could face anything. Even the whispers about Alara faded, replaced by admiration for her skill and courage. Later, as the twin suns climbed higher, Alara stood at the edge of the colony, looking at the distant horizon. The wilderness beyond was still dangerous, still full of unknown threats. But the humans of Nereus 7 had shown that they were not just survivors. They were clever, resourceful, and unbreakable. Jace approached quietly, offering her a cup of warm tea. "We held them off," he said simply. "Together." Alara accepted the cup, her hands trembling slightly from exhaustion but her heart steady. "Together," she agreed. In the distance, the alien wilderness waited, silent and watchful. But for now, the colony was safe, and the humans had proven once again that they could survive where others failed. And in the quiet strength of Alara and the calm determination of Jace, there was a spark, a reminder that humans were unpredictable, resilient, and not easily broken. As night approached again, the settlers gathered for a brief rest. The aliens had tested them, and the humans had responded with courage, strategy, and unity. The whispers of doubt were gone. Humans were no longer fragile in the eyes of the colony. They were clever, determined, and capable of turning the tide against any threat. Alara and Jace sat quietly at the edge of the dome, looking at the stars. "They'll be back," she said. "They always do," Jace replied. "But so will we. Humans always come back stronger." And in that moment, under the twin moons of Nereus 7, the settlers of the colony understood something profound. Human courage was not measured by size, strength, or even numbers. It was measured by ingenuity, unity, and the refusal to give up. And that no alien in the galaxy could ever fully comprehend. The morning sun rose slowly over the red plains of Nereus 7, bathing the colony in pale orange light. Inside the main dome, tension hung heavier than the warm air. The previous night's events, Alien scouts testing the perimeter and the humans' clever traps had brought relief, but they also stirred new fears. Whispers about Alara's pregnancy had grown louder. Some colonists, afraid of the unknown, looked at her with suspicion rather than admiration. Alara entered the central dome, her steps steady but her heart tight. The room was filled with settlers, some quietly working, others standing in small clusters, eyes darting toward her. She could hear the whispers, soft but sharp. "She shouldn't be out here," one muttered. "What if she gets hurt? Or worse, what if it's not even hers?" Another said with a cruel edge. Alara clenched her fists briefly, but she didn't speak. She had faced worse than gossip, and she knew the whispers were fueled by fear, not fact. Fear had a way of twisting people's judgment, but it still stung, knowing that some of the colony she had helped protect now doubted her. Jace appeared beside her, calm and steady as ever. His eyes scanned the room, taking in every face, every twitch of doubt or curiosity. He didn't speak at first. He simply positioned himself near Alara, a quiet shield against the rising tension. The colony council had called a meeting. Settlers gathered in a semicircle around a hollow table displaying the perimeter and the recent trap layouts. Colonel Reichard, the colony leader, spoke first, his tone measured but firm. "We've survived another night," he began. "Our traps worked. The alien scouts were cautious. But there is more to consider. We don't know when they will come back or in what numbers." Alara stepped forward. "I've already analyzed the terrain. We can improve our defenses, but we need cooperation, everyone working together. Fear or doubt won't help us survive." A murmur rose from the crowd. One of the settlers, a wiry man named Kellen, spoke up. "Cooperation is good, yes, but are we certain she can do this? She's with child. Maybe she should step back." The words hit like a stone. Several heads turned toward Alara, and she could feel the judgment in the air. The whispers had turned into something louder, almost confrontational. Alara's face remained calm, but her eyes blazed. "Step back," she asked quietly, her voice low but sharp. "Step back and let the colony fall because I am carrying life. Is that what you want?" Kellen flinched at her tone. It's just what?" Jace's voice cut through the tension like a whip. He stepped forward, putting himself directly in front of Alara. "Just questioning her strength, just assuming she can't protect herself or this colony." His eyes narrowed. "You don't know humans if you think that." Some settlers shifted uncomfortably, sensing the weight in Jace's words. He continued, his voice rising but controlled. "She has fought storms, repaired systems, set traps, defended this colony more than any of you have. And you think a little rumor about pregnancy makes her weak?" The room fell silent. All eyes were on him, waiting. Jace took a deep breath, his rugged face set like stone. Then he said words that would echo across the colony for years to come. "If she is, it's mine." The statement hung in the air, shocking some, inspiring others. It was more than a claim of responsibility. It was a declaration that humans would protect each other fiercely, and that courage and loyalty were stronger than fear or rumor. For a moment, no one spoke. Then murmurs began to rise, not of doubt, but of admiration. Some settlers exchanged looks, realizing that this was the spirit of humans in action. They didn't cower. They didn't abandon each other. They stood together. Colonel Reichard cleared his throat. "Jace is right," he said firmly. "Fear has no place here. If we are to survive, we must trust those who have proven themselves, Alara included." Alara nodded, a small smile breaking across her face. For the first time in days, she felt the weight of the whispers lift slightly. Humans were unpredictable, and their loyalty was a force that no alien or rumor could underestimate. The council moved on to the day's tasks. Alara and her team inspected the outer traps, refining them with new strategies. Mud pits were deepened, ridges strengthened, and hidden defensive positions adjusted. Jace oversaw the perimeter sensors, ensuring no movement went unnoticed. Even Kellen, who had doubted her, worked silently, watching the traps and seeing how effective Alara's designs had become. Slowly, respect replaced skepticism in his eyes. Humans, he realized, were capable of astonishing things when fear was replaced with focus. Midday came and the twin suns hung directly above, scorching the plains. Alara paused to wipe sweat from her brow. Despite exhaustion, her mind was alert. The aliens had been cautious, but she knew they would return. Their intelligence was evident in the way they tested the colony's defenses. Every action had purpose. Every movement was calculated. "We need to be ready for more than just scouts," she said to Jace quietly. "They're learning our strengths. Next time they'll come in force." Jace nodded. "Then we'll be ready. Humans don't fold under pressure. We adapt, we fight, and we survive." As the settlers worked, tension slowly transformed into energy, into a focused determination. They were humans on a frontier world facing threats that could have crushed them. But humans had something no alien or obstacle could predict: ingenuity, loyalty, and a stubborn refusal to give up. Late in the afternoon, a small group of scouts returned with a new report. Their instruments had detected faint signals beyond the horizon, unfamiliar structures, possibly alien outposts, moving slowly toward the colony. The council gathered quickly to discuss the findings. Alara studied the holographic display. "These are more than scouts," she said. "They're preparing something, maybe a strike. Maybe they want to test us again. Either way, we need to be ready." Colonel Reichard nodded. "Agreed. We'll strengthen the outer defenses and prepare for a confrontation. Everyone will have a role. No one is exempt. Humans survive because we work together." The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the colony. Settlers moved with purpose, preparing barriers, reinforcing shelters, and sharpening tools. Fear was present, but it was no longer paralyzing. Instead, it fueled action. Humans were remarkable in their ability to turn fear into determination. Jay stayed by Alara's side as they checked the traps one last time. The mud pits were deep and slick, the ridges concealing defensive positions, and the sensor alarms fully operational. Every detail mattered, every precaution could save lives. "They'll come," Jay said softly, "and they'll underestimate us just like before." Alara smiled faintly, exhaustion in her eyes but resolve in her heart. "Then they'll be in for a surprise." Humans are not what they expect. We survive, we adapt, and we fight back. As night fell fully over Nereus 7, the colony was quiet but alert. Fires burned in the central dome, casting a warm glow on determined faces. The alien wilderness stretched endlessly beyond the perimeter, silent but watchful. Inside, Alara and Jace sat together, sharing a quiet meal. "You really meant what you said," Alara said, her voice soft but steady. Jace shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Of course. Humans protect what matters to us, and so do I. You're not alone." Alara nodded, feeling a rare sense of peace. For the first time in days, she believed that the colony could face whatever came next. The whispers of doubt had been silenced by courage, loyalty, and the undeniable bond between humans who refused to yield. Outside, the twin moons rose high, illuminating the red plains in silver light. Somewhere beyond the perimeter, alien eyes watched, curious and calculating. They had observed humans before, but they had never faced such unity, such unpredictability, and such determination. Alara stood at the edge of the colony, looking at the distant horizon. Her heart was steady. She was not just a settler, she was a human. And humans, she knew, could face anything, even an alien threat, even fear, even impossible odds, and survive. Jay stood beside her, silent but steady. Together they watched the plains, ready for whatever came next. And in that quiet moment, the settlers of Nereus 7 learned a profound truth. Humans were not fragile. Humans were clever, resourceful, and fiercely loyal. Humans were unpredictable, and that unpredictability was their greatest strength. The night deepened. Shadows moved beyond the fences, but the colony was no longer afraid. They had witnessed courage, strategy, and unity in action. The whispers of doubt had been replaced by admiration, and the settlers were ready. Whatever came, they would face it together. And humans, as always, would endure. The first light of dawn crept across the red plains of Nereus 7, turning the sky a pale gold. The colony stirred with anticipation, a quiet energy buzzing through the domes. Everyone knew the aliens were coming. The reconnaissance of the previous nights had made it clear. The small scouts were just the beginning. Elara stood on a ridge overlooking the perimeter, her eyes scanning the horizon. She was tired, every muscle aching from long hours of preparation, but she was far from defeated. Behind her, Jace adjusted his rifle and checked the sensor readings. "They're moving," he said softly. "The first wave is coming." Elara nodded. "Then we fight." Exactly as we planned. The settlers moved quickly, taking positions at the reinforced barriers, behind the mud pits, and among the hidden ridges. Every detail had been considered. Every trap had a purpose. Every human knew their role. Fear was present, but it was tempered by courage. Humans had a strange way of turning fear into action, a skill no alien could predict. From the distant hills, shadows began to shift. The aliens were cautious, moving in precise formations. They were intelligent, adaptive, and clearly aware of the humans' traps, but they had underestimated the humans' resourcefulness. Elara activated the terraforming controls. Tiny vents opened across the outer plains, releasing moisture into the red dust. Mud pits became slick and deep, forcing alien scouts to slow down or risk getting trapped. Hidden ridges concealed humans armed with energy rifles, ready to strike. The first alien scouts reached the mud pits and froze, assessing the terrain. One misstep and it sank knee-deep into the muck. A silent alarm blinked on the sensor panel. "Engage," Elara whispered. The humans acted in unison. Laser pulses flashed across the horizon, hitting alien scouts with precision. The creatures were fast, but humans were faster in thinking, reacting, and using the terrain to their advantage. Some aliens leapt over the mud pits, only to find themselves funneled into narrow channels between ridges, perfect kill zones. Jace moved along the ridge, firing carefully, every shot calculated. His eyes never left the horizon. "They're learning," he muttered, "but we're adapting faster." The alien scouts regrouped, circling around the colony's flanks. They attempted to probe the barriers and bypass traps, testing weaknesses. But the humans anticipated this. Hidden sensors alerted settlers to the scouts' movements, allowing energy barriers to shift and mud traps to adjust in real time. Colonel Reichard coordinated from the command dome, giving orders calmly. "Focus fire on the forward scouts. Don't waste energy on the rear unless they breach. Remember your positions. Humans survive because we work together." Elara moved swiftly, her hands on the terraforming console, adjusting the terrain as alien scouts tried to flank the colony. Her body was heavy with exhaustion, but her mind was sharp. Every adjustment was critical. Every decision could save lives. Humans survived because they were clever, unpredictable, and relentless. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, turning the plains into a bright, harsh landscape. The alien scouts pressed forward in waves, testing the humans again and again. Some fell into traps, others were funneled into kill zones. Some retreated, regrouping, only to be met with new strategies from the humans. Even settlers who had doubted Elara worked tirelessly, inspired by her leadership and courage. Kellen moved among the barricades, reinforcing weak points and providing cover fire. He caught Elara's eye once and nodded silently. No words were needed. The humans had become a unit, united in determination and resourcefulness. By midday, the colony had suffered minimal losses. The aliens had learned quickly, but humans were faster in adapting. Every trap had a backup. Every hidden position was filled. The humans' ingenuity, combined with courage and teamwork, created a defense the aliens had not anticipated. Suddenly, from the far side of the plains, a larger group of aliens appeared. This was not just scouts, it was a strike force. They moved in tight formation, heavily armored and clearly prepared for confrontation. The colony tensed. This was the real attack. Alara took a deep breath. "Stay calm, follow the plan. We've done this before and we can do it again." The settlers nodded, gripping their weapons. Jace positioned himself beside her, ready to protect and support. The first wave of the strike force reached the outer mud pits. Some slipped and sank, others found themselves in narrow kill channels. Energy pulses and carefully aimed rifles cut through the ranks. The aliens were strong and fast, but humans were smarter. Humans used the terrain, their minds, and their unity to turn the battlefield in their favor. One of the aliens tried to bypass the defenses entirely, moving toward the main dome. Jace spotted it immediately. He fired a precision shot, hitting a critical joint. The alien toppled, and the settlers cheered silently. Alara adjusted the terrain again, forcing the next wave of attackers into tighter channels. Each move was calculated, forcing the aliens into traps that maximized human advantage. The settlers' morale grew with each success. Humans were never at their best when safe. They excelled when threatened, creative under pressure and relentless in defense. By mid-afternoon, the aliens were retreating, regrouping in the distance. They had tested the colony and discovered the humans were not easy prey. Every wave they sent was met with strategy, teamwork, and ingenuity. Humans had turned fear into power, and the aliens had underestimated them. Colonel Reichard addressed the settlers from the command dome. "We've done well today," he said, "but the threat is not gone. We need to remain vigilant. Humans survive because we adapt, learn, and act together." Alara wiped sweat and dust from her face, her body exhausted but her spirit strong. She glanced at Jace, who nodded in approval. The settlers looked to her, their admiration clear. The whispers that had plagued her days ago were gone, replaced by respect. Humans had proven their strength once again. As night fell, the colony lit up with energy shields and watchfires. Settlers rotated shifts, ensuring that the perimeter was always guarded. The alien threat had been repelled, but it would return. The humans knew this. They expected it, and they were ready. Alara and Jace walked along the outer ridge, surveying the battlefield from earlier. "They didn't expect us," she said quietly. "Humans are unpredictable." Jace smiled faintly. "Exactly, and that unpredictability is our strength." The twins' moons rose, casting silver light over the red plains. Beyond the perimeter, the aliens moved silently in the shadows, watching, learning, and preparing. But the humans were already one step ahead. Their courage, ingenuity, and unity had turned a potential disaster into a victory. Inside the central dome, settlers celebrated quietly, not with reckless joy, but with a sense of accomplishment. They had defended their home, proving that humans could survive, adapt, and win against a superior opponent. Even those who had doubted Alara now spoke in admiration of her leadership and skill. Jace stood near her, watching the colony with quiet pride. "We did it," he said. "But they'll be back, and next time it will be harder." Alara nodded, exhaustion and determination blending in her expression. "Then we'll be ready. Humans don't give up. We survive. We adapt. We fight." The night deepened and the colony rested while still alert. The aliens had been tested, and humans had proven themselves formidable. The whispers of doubt were gone, replaced by the knowledge that humans were clever, resilient, and courageous. Outside, the red plains stretched endlessly, a reminder of the harsh world humans had tamed through ingenuity and perseverance. The settlers of Nereus 7 had faced impossible odds, and they had prevailed, not through brute strength, but through intelligence, teamwork, and unyielding spirit. Alara and Jace sat at the edge of the ridge, looking at the distant horizon. "Whatever comes next," she said softly, "we'll face it together." Jace nodded. Humans always do. And under the twin moons of Nereus 7, the settlers understood a simple truth. Humans were not fragile, weak, or predictable. Humans were clever, resourceful, and fiercely loyal. Humans could survive where others failed, and sometimes that was enough to turn the tide of an entire battle. The aliens had been repelled, the colony was safe for now. But the humans of Nereus 7 had proven themselves. They were survivors, they were defenders, they were human. And humans, as always, endured. The red plains of Nereus 7 were quiet under the twin moons, but the calm was temporary. The alien scouts had returned in full force. Larger than before, heavily armored and organized in disciplined ranks, they advanced with precision, confident that the humans would not withstand a second attack. They had underestimated one thing: humans. Alara stood at the ridge with Jace, her eyes scanning the horizon. The settlers were ready. Every barrier was reinforced, every trap recalibrated, and every defensive position manned. Even the youngest and oldest among them had roles to play. Humans survived by working together, thinking ahead, and refusing to give up. "They're coming faster this time," Jace said, tightening his grip on his rifle. "They learned from last time." Alara nodded. "Good, then we'll make them learn again." Inside the central dome, Colonel Reichard addressed the colony. "This is it. Today we show what humans are capable of. Fear is natural, but we survive not because we are fearless, but because we act despite fear. Work together. Trust your training. Trust each other." The settlers nodded, determination lighting their faces. Alara moved among them, offering quiet words of encouragement, checking equipment and adjusting positions. She was exhausted, her body heavy from the pregnancy, but her mind was sharp. Humans survived because they used both courage and intelligence, and she had both in abundance. Outside, the first wave of the alien force reached the mud pits. This time, they were prepared to leap across, but the humans had anticipated them. Hidden wires triggered small bursts of pressurized air, knocking several off balance. Energy pulses flashed from concealed positions, hitting with accuracy that only humans could achieve under such pressure. Jace moved along the ridge, taking precise shots at advancing aliens, his calm focus a reminder of human adaptability. He shouted to the settlers, "Hold your ground, watch each other's backs. Remember, we fight smart, not just hard." The aliens regrouped quickly, showing intelligence and coordination. But humans were faster in thinking and unpredictable in their tactics. Alara activated the terraforming system, shifting small ridges to funnel the attackers into narrow paths. Mud traps became deeper, and small channels concealed settlers ready to ambush. The aliens hesitated, unsure how to proceed. Humans had turned the battlefield into a maze of danger, using terrain as a weapon. Every move was calculated. Every decision, every adjustment was designed to maximize the settlers' advantage. In the midst of battle, Kellen, who had doubted Alara days ago, shouted to a fellow settler, "Watch that flank. She was right. This works." His voice carried over the chaos. Humans had a rare quality. They learned quickly, adapted, and worked as a single unit. The alien strike force pressed forward, but each step was met with clever traps and precise counterattacks. Some aliens fell into mud pits, others were funneled into channels where settlers fired from above. Humans had turned fear and pressure into strength, proving their ingenuity in the face of a superior force. Hours passed, and the sun climbed high over the red plains. The alien force, frustrated and battered, began to retreat, but the humans were not done. They pursued, using mobility, intelligence, and strategy to push the aliens back. The settlers' determination was unbreakable, their unity undeniable. Humans were unpredictable, and that unpredictability was their greatest strength. Jace and Alara worked in perfect coordination. She adjusted terrain and traps, he executed precise maneuvers and covered the settlers. Every decision was deliberate, every action counted. Humans had survived on this planet not through brute force, but through cleverness, adaptability, and courage. By late afternoon, the alien strike force had been forced into a narrow canyon. Humans pressed their advantage, using the terrain to trap the aliens. Energy pulses and clever tactics cut through their ranks, forcing them to retreat in disarray. Colonel Reichard addressed the colony over comms, his voice steady. "We've done it. The aliens are retreating. Today, you've proven what humans are capable of, not because of strength alone, but because of courage, ingenuity, and unity." The settlers cheered, relief and pride flooding the colony. Alara stood among them, exhausted but proud. Even the whispers of doubt from earlier days were gone, replaced with admiration and respect. Humans had proven themselves once again. Night fell over the colony, and the twin moons cast silver light on the red plains. The settlers gathered around small fires, sharing meals and stories, celebrating survival and victory. Humans had endured impossible odds and come out stronger. Alara stood at the edge of the colony, looking toward the distant horizon. She placed a hand on her growing belly, feeling the life within her. That life was a symbol, not just of hope, but of human resilience. Humans survived, adapted, and thrived even in the harshest conditions. Jace joined her, his presence steady and reassuring. "We did it," he said softly. "Yes," Alara replied, "and we'll continue to do it, no matter what comes next." They watched the plains together, knowing that challenges would always return, but humans would always endure. Their ingenuity, courage, and loyalty were unmatched, and even the galaxy's most advanced species could not predict their actions. Humans were extraordinary, not because they were perfect, but because they refused to give up, refused to yield, and always found a way to survive. The next morning, settlers began the work of rebuilding and strengthening. The alien attack had tested them, but humans had proven themselves. The colony was safe, for now, and stronger than ever. Every settler understood that survival was not about avoiding danger, but about facing it with intelligence, courage, and unity. Alara and Jace walked through the colony, offering encouragement and guidance. Settlers greeted them with respect, admiration shining in their eyes. Humans had not only defended their home, they had inspired each other. Fear and doubt had been replaced by confidence and determination. In the days that followed, the settlers continued to fortify their colony. Alien threats were no longer distant rumors, they were tangible challenges, but humans faced them with preparation and ingenuity. Every trap, every barrier, every strategic decision reflected the settlers' intelligence and foresight. Alara's pregnancy progressed, but she remained active, leading the colony with strength and wisdom. Jace stayed by her side, protective and supportive, a symbol of human loyalty and courage. Together, they embodied what it meant to be human, clever, resilient, and unbreakable. As weeks passed, the aliens retreated further, unable to breach the colony. The settlers celebrated their victories, but they remained vigilant. Humans knew survival required constant effort, adaptability, and unity, and they were more than capable of meeting that challenge. One evening, as the twin moons rose again, Alara and Jace stood on the ridge overlooking the colony. The air was calm, the plains silent, and the settlers moved about their tasks with quiet confidence. "This is home," Alara said softly, her hand resting on her belly. "And we've proven humans can protect it," Jace nodded. "Humans always do. We survive, we fight, we endure." The colony glowed softly under the moons, a testament to human ingenuity, courage, and resilience. Beyond the perimeter, the alien wilderness remained, silent and watchful. But humans had shown that no challenge was too great, no threat insurmountable. Alara and Jace watched the horizon, knowing that the future would bring more trials. But they also knew that humans were unpredictable, clever, and unyielding. No matter what came, they would face it together. The settlers of Nereus 7 had learned a profound truth. Humans were not fragile. Humans were not weak. Humans were extraordinary. They survived, adapted, and triumphed in the harshest conditions. And so, under the twin moons of Nereus 7, a new dawn rose over the colony. The air was filled with hope, determination, and pride. Humans had proven their strength not with brute force alone, but with courage, ingenuity, and unity. Alara smiled, looking at Jace. "We've done it," she said quietly. "Yes," he replied, "and we'll continue to do it together." The red plain stretched endlessly before them, but the settlers of Nereus 7 were no longer just survivors. They were champions of their world, a testament to the power of human resilience. And humans, as always, endured. The aliens may return one day, but humans would be ready. They were clever, resourceful, and fiercely loyal. They were unpredictable, unstoppable, and unbroken. And they were human.